Welcome to the American Institute of Healthcare Professionals videogram on crisis intervention and police de-escalation. And obviously this is a video that is corresponding with many current events with the public and police where individuals are pushing police to the extreme in how they react, as well as police overstepping their boundaries. So what I want to emphasize is that the bond between the public and police is a sacred trust and also a civic bond. Serve and protect are the key elements within policing. So before we even go any further, most police officers are good people, just like any scandals that we witness or see within the church with ministers and priests. Officers are the same way. Most officers are really good people, and that needs to be emphasized before we go any further talking about policing and de-escalation. They're just like any of us. They want to go home to their family at the end of the day, and they want to give back to the community. So we have to have that image of officers overall. However, because of recent events such as the George Floyd murder, racial profiling, and these type of militarized officers with department abuse and cover-ups, all of these things erode trust. The very few bad apples can rot the entire barrel or the perception of it. So while citizens owe police respect, we must know our rights. And we do have many rights that sometimes police try to take away from us without us even knowing. Sometimes, though, basic human courtesy helps any situation. So whether or not one is required or not required to present ID at a particular situation, you can debate with an officer, but probably it's going to create a bigger problem. And the same thing with police officers and how they communicate. Instead of blunt orders, maybe approaching someone with a little bit of compassion. These are important things. So anger management and mutual respect from both sides are essential in every type of traffic stop and investigation. But both sides must maintain their lawfully required positions. So stress management, anger management, crisis intervention and de-escalation, and mental health training in police departments are critical for the essential necessities for better cooperation between the police and the general public itself. Officers, though, probably work one of the most stressful jobs that there is. Some would even say it's the highest, most stressful job, because each stop, each traffic stop represents a possible alteration, a shooting, or an interaction with a dangerous criminal. So police themselves deal with various PTSD-induced issues every day. They see some of the worst things that can happen to people, and they see some of the worst individuals that exist in society. They deal with high-speed chases, apprehending suspects, especially dangerous criminals. They see shootings, death, crime scenes, and the victims themselves. And they are always just one mistake away, one bad shooting away from a potential lawsuit. They also have to deal with self-entitled public, individuals who think they can audit every police officer. And while they do have some truth in what they present and what an officer can and cannot do, these auditors, these constitutionalists are actually causing more problems because they're taking the police away from things that they should be doing. And they are also adding stress to the situation. They also have to deal with names, insults from angry crowds. They are tested and ridiculed for job performance. They deal with negative press, injustice in the courts, and enormous paperwork that amounts from all of this, especially from their own departments and from other civic authorities that demand so much from them. So there is an instrumental amount of officer stress taking place. However, this does not give them a free pass. We still, as the public, demand better policing. Police officers have to be of a different mold of person, where they're stressed, but they still perform at such a high standard. And if they cannot handle that high standard, they should not be policing. Some officers are from military backgrounds, and departments see that as a great way to take in someone who's already trained and understands. But the problem is those who come from military backgrounds sometimes also bring that military attitude. Commands and orders are meant to be obeyed immediately. Some officers have authority issues, abuse issues, and histories of excessive forces. And then there's flip from one department to another. So excessive force, racial profiling. Someone is of a certain color, they're more likely to be pulled over. Punishing someone who actually tries to question an officer appropriately within their rights. Cover-ups within the department, illegitimate searches, all these things can cause mistrust. So what I would like to refer to is the Andy Griffith, if you remember that old television program, the sheriff of Mayberry, the ideal of policing itself, knowing the neighborhood itself, not being offended by words, using reasoning, and using legitimate use of force. Be more like Andy Griffith, kind of, instead of more like Barney Fife, in terms of just trying to enforce every regulation without reason. I think that's what Andy tried to teach Barney throughout the show, that good policing is a relationship with the community itself. Officers, though, are mistreated verbally every day, and they face death at every potential stop, as we pointed out. But that doesn't give them a free pass, as I said. They are still called to higher standards. And if they cannot perform at that high standard, despite the irritations that they see, they need to look for a different line of work. So police reform, what does it involve? Crisis and de-escalation skills, crisis intervention, stress management, and anger management training are critical. AIHCP offers all of these programs. It offers crisis intervention especially. And we have had some police officers and some departments work through our program where we send them through our online training. They receive it and they go through the modules. Mental health training and awareness is also key at the departments. Mental health response teams. This involves utilizing social workers and other trained professionals in mental health who can accompany an officer on a mental health call. We also need to look into emergency operator training. So when 911 is called, they can alert the police that this is a mental health situation. There is a person with a gun, but he or she is not mentally right. And how are we going to respond to that? With the crisis intervention, there needs to be better communication and de-escalation emphasis. In a lot of videos that we see, the police are egged on and they push back. Instead of de-escalating, they escalate more. Again, going back to that whole quote unquote Andy Griffith style of policing within itself. Also, there needs to be partnership with mental health facilities. So when individuals are arrested due to because of their mental illness, then they are able to be sent to the appropriate places. Mentally ill should not be sent to prison. They need a particular type of help to get their mental facilities back on track itself. There also needs to be a higher utilization of non-lethal weapons when dealing with the mentally ill. Instead of using regular rounds, maybe some rubber rounds that they use for when protests go bad and mobs start to take control of the streets. There's usually rubber bullets, and also utilizing other less lethal forms of containment with an individual. And it's also important to understand that this is not just protecting the individual, but it's also protecting the officer from falling under malpractice and falling under legal lawsuits itself in terms of what they are doing. Finally, removal of corruption. I think that goes for everything in this world, from politics to any organization, religious as well. But there are a lot of cover-ups, and there is an idea that blue is a color and that you don't speak against another officer. So there is almost like a code of silence, even when something's going wrong. And when a bad officer is fired, they usually might be picked up a couple counties down the road. So it's important to enforce police reform, because it's just not the public, but there are some bad apples out there. And there are some good cops that are not receiving, some good officers are not receiving the training that they need. So again, AIHCP offers various programs that can help officers or anyone involved in this type of a civic bond with individuals, with the public itself, in terms of how to de-escalate and how to make things safe for the officer as well as the individual. So we offer a crisis intervention certification. There's the link. We offer a stress management certification, and there's the link. We also offer an anger management, which is not listed there. Our phone is 330-652-7776, and our email is info@aihcp.org. I'd like to thank you for listening, and have a good day.